Well, thanks, everyone. Good evening. Absolute pleasure to be here tonight. It's funny. Usually, I've done a couple of these events for F-150 and for Mustang and for Continental. I think it's the first time I've spoken to an audience that's actually bigger than the number of cars we're actually going to build. But it's great to see so many members of the GT team here. Great to see all of our partners. Great to see a few even GT owners back there somewhere. Where are they at? There you go. So tonight we're going to share a little bit, as we usually do, about the technical details of the new car. We're introducing this car here, the Ford GT, but we're also going to do a little bit something different and tell you a little bit about the real story of the background of the car and some things that maybe you know, some things maybe you don't know, certainly some things that we've never actually admitted out loud before. But for us, the journey for this car probably started more than 3 years ago. We had been looking at strengthening our Ford racing effort, which at the time were not part of product development. And given my limited background in racing, I like to tell guys when I was racing, the older I get, the faster I was. But the team asked me to deep dive our results at the time, which we didn't feel were satisfactory. And so at the time, we had 3 objectives in mind. First, we knew that this effort was important to building the brand. There was actually some in the company that felt that participating in racing was enough, that it was the same as any of our other sports sponsorship, like golf or football or anything else, professional bull riding. We do sponsor professional bull riding. Hits our F-150 customer right at its heart. But racing, there was a few of us that felt it was different. We believe that our performance in racing is a reflection of our technical capabilities. And we firmly believe that if you're going to race, that you should race to win. Second, we wanted to bring product development and our broader team's capability to bear on our race results, to improve our performance, but also as a proving ground for our technology, for our engineering tools, and importantly, as a training ground for our engineers. And finally, in addition to our track performance, we also had opportunities to use the technology to improve our performance vehicles on road and offer greater performance parts in the aftermarket. Often, we were talking to the same customer that was watching us race on the weekend. At the same time this is unfolding, a few of us in the company who appreciate Ford's incredible history in motorsport were talking about an important upcoming milestone. And that was looking at the 1966 1-2-3 finish at the 24 Hours Le Mans, which we felt was the pinnacle of Ford's racing exploits, and wanting to do something special to commemorate the 50th anniversary of that historic win in 2016. But of course, we had a lot of other work in product development that was keeping us pretty busy. And among that other work was a special project that we were very proud of working on, which was developing the company's first global Mustang. And so as we looked at the upcoming milestones, we started to wonder, should we actually combine the introduction of the first global Mustang with a way to celebrate Henry Ford's epic win over Enzo Ferrari, who actually had spurned the Deuce's offer of a business partnership that led to the entire GT40 program. So we thought, should we enter a Mustang at Le Mans in the GT Pro class? So we kicked off a program codenamed Project Silver, after the Lone Ranger's horse, and to evaluate the possibility. Larry Holt from Multimatic, he's going to show you a little bit more about that project. But one of the first things we looked at was the aerodynamic size in the frontal area of the upcoming Mustang versus the competitors like the Ferrari 458. And wow, we realized we're going to need a lot of horsepower and a lot of rules waivers from the production Mustang to make that work at Le Mans. And suddenly, through our Project Silver analysis, the changes that we need to make, this car was becoming something that really wasn't a Mustang. But we were still committed to the project, committed to honoring that milestone, and we took the study pretty far. Engineering studies, feasibility studies, and even a business case for all of that. One of the key aspects is we figured out how to keep the tooling costs low. But based on the type of tooling, the per unit cost of this modified Mustang was going to be at least $250,000 each. So it was all good learning, but it turns out it just wasn't the right fit. Ultimately, Mustang doesn't need Le Mans to be a global car. It doesn't need Le Mans to make its name known. And the specific prototype that we were looking at really didn't suit endurance racing. So in the end, our proposal was rejected. And to be candid, I still wanted to do it, so I was actually a little bit mad, I guess is the best term. In fact, I was really mad. My team will tell you I never get mad, I never get angry at them. But I was a little upset. I just felt we were underestimating the importance of this 50th anniversary coming up. And it was getting ever closer. I knew when we actually got to that 50th anniversary, everybody would then be asking, well, why didn't we do something for it? But our best plan had just been blown out of the water. But I just couldn't leave it at that. And so, if anything, I guess this anger fueled another trait that I guess my team knows me for, which is being a little bit stubborn if I want something. And I was just determined we're going to have to do it, but we're going to have to do it differently. And so I started to wonder, based on the learnings of Project Silver, could we do a low investment full vehicle program? One that everyone asked every head of Ford product development about every year. And that question is, could we do another Ford GT? We had learned a really important lesson from Project Silver, that the new types of tooling available, prototype tooling, really can keep the investment costs low and the quality is exceptional. But it does have volume limitations. Say it's very difficult to do more than 200, 250 units a year. But in any case, we started working out this investment model for the GT and a set of numbers that really started to line up in a good proposition. The problem was our proposal to return to Le Mans had actually been officially rejected by the top of the house, by the top of the glass house. So to work up the rest of the proposal, we needed to actually stay a little bit under the radar. And so it was really skunk works time. So less than a dozen of us, sworn to secrecy, started to work on that plan in, I guess, late 2013. And our plan goals were clear. This was going to be a test bed for our technologies, for engine development. It had to push the boundaries of material usage, such as the lightweight carbon fiber that eventually ended up in the car, and had to stretch our understanding of what was possible in aerodynamics. And above all, we had to deliver a car that was, unlike any other car, singularly focused on becoming an endurance racer. Far more so than anything else in the segment, far more so than anything else probably in history. So I remember sitting with Larry Holt at Indianapolis in 2013. We're sitting at the table in our racing motor coach, and literally on a pad of paper, we started mapping out how could we do this project? How could we develop a GT racing program strong enough to win Le Mans in 2016? And how could we work from there back to delivering a production car? And we had ideas back then about how we could do the aero keel, how we could do the carbon fiber construction. And fortunately, we already had a race-proven engine. Chip Ganassi, our racing partner, who together with Roush Yates, had helped us prove the strength and reliability of a 3.5-liter EcoBoost engine by putting it through the paces in the Daytona Prototype Series and winning in that series. Of course, Chip had no idea why we were running that engine, but now that we had that proven engine, we actually just needed to actually detune it from its prototype horsepower to the GT class horsepower. So all these pieces were falling into place. But every secret project needed to have a code name. We had already lived through Project Silver, and like that Lone Ranger movie, it had failed. But after it had been nixed, one of the guys dubbed this project, Project Groundhog. You know who you are, Jamal Hamidi. And his logic was we'd already looked at bringing back the GT so many times, to him it just felt like Groundhog Day. I said, Jamal, no way are we calling this Project Groundhog. I told him, come up with something cool. And it was beyond his abilities. He just said, I can't think of anything cool. And I said, I don't know, just call it Phoenix, rising from the ashes of every other time we said we should do another GT, but this time we're going to do it. And fortunately, the name stuck. So now we had a problem. We had to figure out how to unveil this project. The project that the CEO and the chairman of the board said we weren't supposed to be working on. So I talked to Mark Fields, I then talked to Alan Mullally, talked to Bill Ford, talked to Edsel Ford, made it sound like it was their idea. I told them, I think we can make a GT and go race it at Le Mans and win. So I took each of them down to the secret studio we had down in the basement of product development to show them what we'd been working on. And eventually I took others down there, took Chip Ganassi down there too. And if you haven't been there, it's quite an experience to visit that Skunk Works studio. It's literally in the basement, in the bowels of our product development center. It's a long way from Executive Row. A lot of people didn't even know that area of the basement existed. It feels like you're going down to that secret lab and Get Smart. You take an elevator and a secret door. And this space had really been off the grid for quite a few years. We used it for our first clay milling machines, the first ones we had in the company. And that whole thing wasn't meant to be a theatrical experience, but I think taking them down to this secret area helped. And the fact that when we opened the door and brought them into the air, that we had this stunning vehicle in the studio, even in those early days, really helped. And what's amazing is, to be honest, first, we designed this car around the aerodynamics. We designed it on the tube for the aerodynamics first. And then the team just made an incredibly beautiful car. So all of this, fortunately, added up to all four of those people supporting the program really enthusiastically and eventually an approved program. But moving through the whole Project Silver phase and then on to Phoenix, we had lost about a full year. And the 50th anniversary wasn't moving. So we had to develop both the race car and the production car at the same time. Plus, we were putting together this plan of how to do a new organization called Ford Performance. Because without this combined organization responsible for racing and performance vehicles, we couldn't have delivered Phoenix. It pulled together our previous separate Ford SVT, Team RS, Ford Racing, performance vehicle parts, and merchandising and licensing teams all into one organization led by Dave Parasak. So without this combined organization, we wouldn't have been able to deliver the fastest ever production/race car combo ever delivered by the company. You know, the amount of fans that the GT has brought back to Ford has really been remarkable. You know, it started the minute we revealed the road car as a surprise at the North American International Auto Show in January 2015. It's really hard to keep a project like that secret in this town, but we threatened to kill anybody that leaked it. I think that probably helped. But despite lots of speculation, we didn't reveal it. We're also planning to race the car. We saved that for the announcement at the 2015 24 Hours Le Mans. And that really started our clock ticking. So we continued engineering both cars. And later that year, we enjoyed that big moment, the first time we put the GT on the track. Testing at Calibogie and other tracks went really well. To be honest, probably too well. And as you may be aware, our first race, our debut race, was the 24 Hours of Daytona in January 2016. And let's just say that did not go as well as planned. Both cars were quick. In fact, we held the fastest lap for quite some time, but we suffered numerous issues, including gearbox issues, and we're well behind the field. But we persevered, because that's what racing's about. In the North American IMSA Series, we eventually won our first race at Laguna Seca in May. And in the World Endurance Championship, we took a second place finish at Spa in May also. But that was it. That was the limit of time we had, and it was on to the 24 Hours Le Mans in June. And let's just say the eyes of the racing world were on us. We only had one chance. It's his 50th anniversary with a brand new car. So certainly no pressure. But on June 16th, we threw down the gauntlet. Not only did we qualify in pole position, we qualified 1, 2, 4, and 5 on the starting grid with our 4 cars. Unfortunately, qualifying probably went a little too well, and the organizers hit us with a penalty, 2 major performance penalties ahead of the race. So they raised our weight by 22 pounds and reduced our turbo pressure. So getting a weight and horsepower penalty was an obvious concern, and happening between qualifying and the race was almost unheard of. So we really didn't know what that meant for the speed of the car. What else could go wrong? Well, during the warm-up lap, one of our cars, the number 67 car, got stuck in gear. Similar issue to what we had in Daytona. We had to take it off the starting grid and bring it back into the garage. So 4 bullets, 4 bullets in our gun, 1 down before the race had even started. And then on a personal note, during all the pre-race excitement, I needed to get to our stand across the pit wall. And being the natural athlete I am, I just said, I'll just jump over this wall. Why is that getting a laugh? Unfortunately, the wall was slicker than usual. That was my excuse. And I actually slipped and fell. The pain was immediate. The embarrassment was more immediate. And I just popped up to see if anybody saw that. And I only learned later, after returning to Detroit, that I'd actually broken my elbow. So that was a really good start to the race. And I mentioned the rain. Our cars, our GTs, are really light on their feet, which is great for the tires as they don't wear out quickly. We can double stint or even triple stint tires. But it also means getting heat into the tires is hard. And it's even harder when it's wet. So these conditions weren't suiting our car very well. So it wasn't the start that we hoped for. We did manage to fix the number 67 car, but it was several laps down. We knew it was out of contention, but this actually worked in our favor because we were able to use it to try different setups as we raced, really treating it as an in-race development car that we could then transfer setups to the other 3 cars. You know, Le Mans, if you know that race, it's a very tough race. It's a nasty race. It's long. You have to overcome inevitable problems that are going to happen. No race is going to happen at Le Mans without issues happening within that 24 hours. One of the things is the track is so big, and the way that they do their yellow flags means you can get caught in the wrong spot at the wrong time and lose almost an entire lap. And that's just the luck of the draw. And unfortunately, that happened to not just one of our cars, but 2 of our cars. And then on 2 of our cars, our number lights didn't light up. And we got called in to repair the number lights so you could see the light at night. So as we were clawing back from the yellow flag, another issue happened. Our lead car, the number 68 car, developed an electrical problem. Sebastian Bourdais, who's driving at the time, did a great job of driving through the night, through these electrical issues, until we could change the steering wheel to correct the problem. Unfortunately, when the car came in for its pit stop, the rule is you have to shut the engine off before you fuel the cars. And we made a mistake because the engine shut off through the steering wheel, that the engine didn't shut down when we were fueling. And we were in the lead of the race at that time. So we got called in for a penalty and we lost the lead and for quite a bit of time. It was just purely a mistake on our part. But those are the mistakes that can lose races. So when we came back out, we were in second place behind the Ferrari with not a lot of time left. But the track was warming up. Dirk Mueller, who was in the car at the time, started putting in some amazingly fast laps and started closing that gap lap by lap. And then Joey Hand got into the car. And now we were really in the hunt. We were making up time lap after lap, getting closer and closer. The track was coming to us. The conditions were coming to us. The car was coming alive. The car was coming into its own. And finally, we made that pass for the lead. And certainly Ferrari didn't give up. They put in an effort and attempted to chase us down, and it was great racing. But eventually they made a mistake and spun while trying to chase us. So now we had a nice cushion. We were looking in good shape, running in 1, 3, and 4. There's maybe even a chance that our third place car could catch up to the Ferrari. But that wasn't the important part. Back in the pits, I was just getting a little uncomfortable because everyone else was getting a little too comfortable. Everybody was smiling, which I hate, especially when the race isn't over. And that all ended when the Toyota that was leading the prototype class broke down on its final lap, broke down right in front of us. And that really sobered everybody up, because that's what can happen in racing. It can happen at any time. There are a million things that can happen at the end of a race, and only one of them is good. So for us, we were all about just finishing that last lap, getting that car over the finish line. And sure enough, we made no mistakes, and the 68 car came across the finish line in first place. So first, third, and fourth finish. Looking back, I don't think any production car program has had its whole reason to exist around one race. And not just one race on one day on that 50th anniversary to the day of the win in 1966. And having Bill Ford and Edsel Ford there with their families made it even more special. Edsel had been there 50 years ago with his dad. And here he is 50 years later with his sons. So I don't know how you get a story better than that. And people ask me, what winning Le Mans meant to me. And having been so close to it for so long and watching as someone who's experienced a lot of what can go wrong in racing, the win, to be honest, really didn't sink in for hours. It wasn't until we landed back in Detroit after the race with my bad arm, which was now really hurting. I somehow managed to get my bag out of the overhead bin, and I put it down, and I looked at our Ford Performance chief, Dave Parasek, who was next to me, and I said, "Did we just win Le Mans?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I guess that's when it really hit me. Even then, it still felt a bit surreal, but that win was something we've been working towards, that single win, for years. And of course, it was a relief, but the best part was delivering that win for everyone who cares about Ford, our families, our employees, and our fans. But for us, the race really didn't end there, because we had to ship production vehicles, production GTs, by the end of 2016. We had 6 months to deliver on that commitment that we made to the race organizers, or otherwise, we actually would have had to return our Le Mans trophy. So after all we've been through, that wasn't an option. So through a lot more blood, sweat, and tears, we delivered the first 2 vehicles following a Job 1 ceremony on December 16th to two of our biggest supporters, Bill Ford and Mark Fields. And that's the big picture of the Ford GT. Well, just like most vehicle programs, senior management went way long talking about why to do the program, and designers took way longer than they're supposed to just talking about the design. And then the vehicle side thinks that they shortened things, but they're still over. And so powertrain always makes up the difference. So thanks to Bob and the powertrain team and our friends at Roush who gave us such a great power plant. So during this whole process, we recognized that this was a story that was going to interest a lot of people. So we've occasionally done documentaries about developing vehicles. We did one on the Mustang. What some people may not recognize on the Mustang is actually we decided to do the documentary in the middle of development of the program. And so we actually had to recreate a whole bunch of stuff to make it look like we were doing it. So we had to recut clays and make it look like we were redoing the clay and stuff. And I said, if we're going to do this program, we have no time to redo stuff. So to the communications team and the marketing team, if you want a documentary, have some people filming now. And they did a great job, and we're filming while we're working. It's going to be called Ford GT: The Return to Le Mans. We're going to introduce it prior to going back to Le Mans this year, a feature-length film, and I thought maybe you'd like to see a teaser of that. Does that sound? So before we go into that again, I just want to thank everyone involved. I want to thank SAE for allowing us to share this vehicle and our passion for this product and passion for all the products that we do. And I want to thank all the partners that were involved in the GT program. So many of you are here. Certainly the whole Ford team, the Multimatic team, the Roush Industries and Roush Yates team, Michelin, Sparco, Brembo. I'm sure I'm forgetting a ton of people that have been putting their blood and sweat and tears into this program as well. I think this is, I think everyone has projects they're proud of. I'm certainly proud of all the programs that I've been able to work on at Ford. But at the retirement party, there'll probably be one that's going to stick out in your mind and one that you'd be most proud of, not just as a product, but even more so of the team. There's no such thing as a great product without a great team. So for delivering a great car, for delivering a win at Le Mans, I want to thank that GT team one more time. So thank you, and here's the teaser.
The iconic 1-2-3 finish at Le Mans was the defining moment in Ford's race history.
In the car business, dates count. We have the 50th anniversary of Le Mans coming up. Why don't we do another GT?
One thing's for sure, the birthday party was going to happen, the 50th anniversary one way or another, and the time was ticking.
We've got a lot to prove to not only the world, but even to people inside our company, and we intend to do that.
You'd be an absolutely arrogant idiot to sit here and say you're going to win Le Mans. That's a tough race. It can be very nasty.
It's racing, and everyone knows in racing, things go wrong.
This whole thing is about going back to Le Mans. We're going to go back, and we're going to give it hell. We're going to see what we can do.